Okay, so here we go. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
9, 7, 1, 5. 3, 9, 7, 1, 5. 3, 9, 7, 1.
Welcome to Radioflash, Armada's dedicated defence and security electromagnetic podcast with your host Tom Withington at the controls. The Baltic is on the front line. The region faces an increasingly aggressive Russia. Moscow's invasion of Ukraine in 2014 and the second invasion of 2022 was a stark warning. Should Mr. Putin's forces succeed in fulfilling their occupation, the Baltic states are all but certain to be next in his crosshairs. The region has seen an upswing in aggressive electromagnetic activity since the invasion, illustrated by near-daily Russian jamming of satellite navigation signals. Any future invasion of the Baltic would see eye-watering levels of Russian electronic warfare. How do things feel at the moment in Northeast Europe? And what steps are the Baltic states taking to improve their electromagnetic resilience? To make sense of these and other questions, we're joined today on the show by John Longhurst, Chief Executive Officer of Tangent Link, and he joins us today from Tallinn in Estonia. John, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Tom, as always.
It's good to have you back on the show. You were with us a couple of years back, I seem to recall, talking to us about the EW Live event, which we're also going to be talking about today.
That's right. We started this event in 2017 with the idea that it was a bit of a backwater technology that people had ignored. We didn't agree. And the Estonian Ministry of Defence agreed with us and have supported this event over the years. And now it's mainstream again. So we're very fortunate to have had that support from the outset. And I think Estonia feels fortunate to have an activity like this in country at a time like this.
You've been based up in Estonia for some time now. I'm a veteran of previous events that you've done that have been highly enjoyable down in Tartu. I've been lucky enough to visit Tallinn on many occasions. What's the situation like for yourselves at the moment, keeping in mind the sort of electromagnetic threats, what we hear about the GNSS jamming, the cyber attacks, that kind of thing?
Estonia is experiencing all forms of increased hybrid activity from Russia. Clearly, the jamming of the Finnair flights in Tartu airport got a lot of international attention, as did the dragging of the chain across gas pipelines and obviously damage to telecom pipelines, telecom tubes. Also, organised attacks by criminals against ministers' cars. So Estonia is experiencing the full range of Russian hybrid activities right now. And as you say, with GNSS being attacked on a daily basis, this activity is expected to only increase.
Have you been spared, in your day-to-day lives, have you been spared the worst of the sort of GNSS jamming? You mentioned the situation with Tartu Airport that obviously received a lot of publicity some weeks back. But on a day-to-day basis, does it affect things like, it sounds very prosaic, but using rideshare services, getting a taxi, all the things we rely on for using GNSS, is that something that gets affected?
It does. Bolt, which is the Uber in this nation, regularly has challenges with its locations of its cab drivers. I've experienced it myself, actually, where the location of where I am on the map is not in the place it should be. So for sure, Russian activities are having an influence on day-to-day activities.
This is one thing I'm always sort of trying to get over to people when there's a tendency sometimes. I think certainly in the part of Europe I'm in Western Europe, there's a tendency among some people to think, well, what's happening in the Baltic, what's happening in Ukraine, it's remote, it's distant, is it really that applicable to our daily lives? And I'm always saying, well, if things like rideshare services, your deliveries, all of these kind of things start getting affected, it is going to get very, very serious. But it's interesting you mentioned that effect that it has on people's daily lives, because I think that's something that can get easily overlooked.
something, of course, that Estonia is well known for, state-on-state cyber attacks ever since 2007. And there's no doubt as well that the increased level of cyber activity by Russia against Estonia and the region has increased dramatically as well. Whether that's SEMA activity, we'd need to have a more technical conversation. But if we look at cyber and the full spectrum of electromagnetic activities, Russia is increasing them steadily, and that's not going to change.
Well, you've very helpfully segued me into my next question, which is regarding what local efforts are ongoing both in Estonia and the wider region. I mean, when I've visited Tallinn in the past, I've been to the NATO cyber range and other facilities and seeing other things that are happening. What else are you seeing from your perspective in terms of investment and efforts to kind of combat these menaces that the Baltic region's facing?
Two key factors. Firstly, affordability. Secondly, short development cycles. The amount of activity taking place between Estonian Defence Forces and Estonian Defence League and their compatriots in Ukraine is phenomenal. I suspect that Estonia, above all NATO nations, is taking the lessons learned and applying those to the front line. And that's being reported on more actively, not just UAS and CUAS. All activities, effectively, how can Estonia build a porcupine strategy, a true A2AD defense that is going to keep, not just Russia at bay, but also deter them. And, in this part of the world, people do expect something to happen within the 3 to 4 year timeline. And everyone's operating on that basis. They haven't got the luxury of 5-year decision cycles that you get in the US and elsewhere. You're getting, cycles of weeks, maximum months, to get capabilities fielded that are credible and can be easily upgraded, such as UAS without the requirement for GNSS. I mean, that's a massive effort. Terminal guidance, for instance, very low cost, between $1,000 and $3,000 for terminal drones that the Americans are paying $500,000 for. So the US is picking up a lot of lessons from what the Estonians are currently doing on the back of Ukraine.
Are you seeing that level of investment and energetic development being replicated across the other Baltic nations as well? And is there a synergy between the countries? I mean, I know you've got the NATO framework and the EU framework that's there, but is there a regional synergy going on to share lessons learned, for instance, to share sort of ideas on technologies that could be developed or advanced?
Pound for pound, the Baltic nations are the most active startup ecosystems on the planet. And that is being applied aggressively to the defence realm now. Obviously, with Ukraine, you've got Brave One, which is their new startup ecosystem, which is attracting a lot of time and energy. But in the Baltic nations now, you're seeing these communities, hackathons, and all the angel investors. Everyone is coming at this now because they can see that there is a clear and present danger and a huge demand. So Estonia in particular, probably more than the other two nations, is a hive of activity now, hundreds of startups, basically applying AI and advanced technologies, but even cryptographic technology, really advanced technologies now, from the universities being applied to rapid capability evolution.
Of course, we've got the EW Live show that is coming up between the 17th and 19th of September in Tartu in southern Estonia. I've been to a couple of them before. They've been fantastic events. The perfect mix of conference presentations and also exhibits, but crucially, live events, live demonstrations. We get to see EW being performed in the flesh. And we've also got an event I think you're going to be telling us about that's happening in 2025 as well. So folks coming to Tartu in September, what can they expect to see?
The validity of the EW Live format has been completely justified by the Ukraine war. Practitioners and those with procurement decision-making powers, they can go to 100 events, get a business card, see a PowerPoint. We started EW Live because we wanted practitioners to see equipment in action. So the power of that clearly is far greater today because people need to see stuff that works. Now, this year's event is by far the most complex that we've ever held. The capabilities that will be on show are 3 to 4 times more capable than we've had at any other show, because vendors are bringing equipment that is on the front line, and they're developing rapidly for the front line, applying the lessons learned. So the capabilities being demonstrated, not just the complexity and the number of bits of kit, and the breadth of companies we've got coming from around NATO and NATO friendly. It's by far the best set of capabilities being shown of any of our events so far. And looking at 2025, where we will be adding a day of workshops before the event, that expansion of capabilities being shown and demonstrated will increase further.
Looking at the fact that you've got an event now in 2025 as well, are you looking perhaps to make this an annual event?
Traditionally, we hold this every 18 months to 2 years, but practitioners are pulling this now. We've been supported in moving this to an annual event every September, and the breadth of capabilities that we will show will expand. Next year, we will be adding half a day purely on SEMA with our friends at CR14 in the Estonian Ministry of Defence. We added space 2 events ago, and we will continue to add EW-related activities to this event.
As well as coming to attend the event and see all of the wonderful things that are going to be demonstrated and discussed and exhibited, that kind of thing, how else can people get involved?
What we tend to find is, because a lot of companies are afraid of turning on their kit and it doesn't work as advertised, they're a little bit gun shy, which I fully respect. So having the exhibition to come along and exhibit, it's not just an opportunity to meet senior military practitioners from 25 to 30 nations. It's also an opportunity to see this event and become comfortable with the format. It's not as scary as people think. The vendors that have been coming now come every time, and they do more. The list of names is available on the website, and these are the top vendors in this space. So the format is proven, but definitely coming to exhibit, which we've been trying to get the primes to do. The primes tend not to like to come to an event like this, but we think that they will start to come.
Well, to any primes that are out there listening, you've heard Mr. Longhurst, and I would thoroughly endorse his message. Absolutely, do come along to this event and come and show us what you have. It's always very impressive in events I've been in the past, where you've got some of the smaller companies that are turning up and bringing their kit and really putting it through its paces. You know, I remember seeing the counter drone demonstration that we had at the last event, and this was exciting stuff. You know, swarms of drones attacking positions, jammers that were out there, ESMs that were operating. I mean, this is kind of like the red arrows, but for EW geeks like me.
But guess what? Some of it didn't work, and actually, some of the most impressive meetings and conversations. You know, we had fog one morning, and some of the kit didn't work because, some moisture things. And so they had to adapt on the spot. Okay, just like in battle, stuff goes wrong. And the companies that came out with the flying colours actually were those that did have the problems and were able to show the practitioners, workarounds on the spot. Very impressive stuff. So failure can turn into great success, actually, if you're ready for it.
And as always with these events, it's not just the sights and sounds and what you see and everything, but it's the conversations as well. And I certainly remember in the past, you and I have had some great conversations about EW. We've also had great conversations with other people. So I think that's another great attraction. Is it's not just the content, it's the people you're going to be meeting and talking to.
One thing that many military delegations have asked us for is to have just a little bit more time so that they can spend time with each other. And this is one small change we've made to the format, is to enable them to spend more time meeting the vendors face to face outside the classroom, but also for them to spend time together. And we're creating more forums for them to be able to do that. And that's going to be the big shift in the event next year, is to enable unclassified conversations where people can actually help each other. And this is one of the big attractions for this event.
Well, John, certainly very much looking forward to the event later on this year. Probably a chance for us to have another chat at the show and do another recording if you're up for it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom.
And don't forget, if you'd like to learn more about both the 2024 and 2025 EW Live events, do please visit Tangent Link's website at tangentlink.com. And don't forget, there's more news and analysis available at armadainternational.com. That's all we've got time for. Thank you very much for listening.